Good afternoon, everyone. I'm CBS 19 Chief Meteorologist Brett Anthony here on this Saturday afternoon. The time now 12:07. If you are just tuning in, we appreciate your time checking us out here on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and of course we're streaming on CBS 19 Plus. So far, we're just in sort of a holding pattern here as we wait for the thunderstorms to get closer to East Texas. We do have cloud cover, which is limiting the instability. It's also holding the temperature down into the mid-60s. So if you're rooting against severe weather today, and all of us should be, this is a good sign. However, there will be some other components, other ingredients that come through the area as we head later into the afternoon that could enhance or strengthen some of the thunderstorms. And I'm going to go over all of those. This is going to be an in-depth. We're going to chop it up, break it down for you, try to give you the most detailed forecast we can do. And we're allowed to do that because we have all this time on CBS 19 Plus on the YouTube page and, of course, or the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. So if you have any questions on the YouTube or the Facebook page, please put those in the comments. We'll try to answer those. We are watching those here as we head into the afternoon. We're broadcasting live on the Facebook page, and sharing this is just a key component. Getting the word out. We have 174,000 followers on Facebook, so if we could reach all 174,000, we'd have the word spread across East Texas as we head into the afternoon. Again, just some lowering of the clouds. That's pretty common for an event like this. It is we'll call it an early season event. Really, overall, the tornado threat is very low today. There is, though, just that little bit of an outside chance because tornadoes can occur any time of the year in any parts of East Texas. Appreciate the folks that have topped on and have added the likes to our page so far. As we take a look here at the next graphic, we're going to look at radar. And so you can see we got the donut hole going on right here across Tyler, Henderson, and Center. Some light rain showers in parts of deep East Texas. We will kind of pan out here to the northwest. You can see the heavier thunderstorms through the DFW back to the west of Waco, back west of I-35. So those heavier thunderstorms eventually will begin to march to the east. It might take a couple of hours. I would say overall the trend here today has been for a slower evolution of this storm system. We did think that it might be pushing into the Tyler area by about 1 or 2 o'clock, but just looking at what we're seeing there, we're not seeing a whole lot of movement to the east with this storm. So as a result, we may end up with just a later arrival for those showers and thunderstorms. So if that happens, then maybe we push back the timeline or the frame for these thunderstorms to eventually move into East Texas, maybe instead of what we were thinking 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock time frame, maybe 6 or 7 o'clock. And that, of course, will impact all types of your plans throughout Valentine's Day. All right, just trying to get the radar up to sync here. Looks like I got to disconnect one point that we use, and that is something when we track the thunderstorms. So we're just going to have to put it, there it goes. Now we're back. Now we're caught up to speed here. Okay, so there you go. Heavy rain, but non-severe thunderstorms right now in Mount Pleasant. Likely just some maybe 15, 20 mile an hour winds there. Looks like a little sharpening of the line south and west of Dallas. I'll zoom in on that area. We might be able to look at some of the velocities inside these thunderstorms, looking at the straight line wind component with that. But you can see lots of thunder and lightning from Morgan up to Cleburne, over toward Fort Worth, all the way to Plano. And this, as I put this into motion, you'll start to see this marching eastward. Again, it's going to take a few hours before it gets into East Texas first, of course, moving through the DFW across Waxahachie and then over toward Corsicana. But in the last, say, hour or so, it has certainly picked up some momentum to the east. So as this moves in, we'll watch for some very strong gusty winds, especially if this maintains this signature here. Once it gets into East Texas, it could have a stronger wind field with it. It could be putting wind gusts up closer to 50 or 55 miles an hour. But again, right now, the current look, and I'll try to widen things out here so you can get a really good feel for what's going on. Just some light rain showers in deep East Texas, and then the heavier rain back to the west. All right, so we'll zoom in. I'll put this into motion. I'll check for any questions that we might have on the Facebook page, and then we'll get into the meat of the forecast here. All right, so let's dive right in and talk about the severe weather outlook today. from the Storm Prediction Center. This was updated at 11:30 this morning. When we woke up this morning, Tyler was out of the slight risk. Now Tyler and Longview have been moved back into the slight risk. And I think that's just indicative of some of the conditions that we're seeing with that line of thunderstorms out in the DFW that could sweep across the area and give at least a chance to see some scattered damaging wind gusts. Anywhere in the yellow, that was where we would find scattered reports of severe weather. In the green, that would be isolated reports of severe weather. Last night, West Texas was in the marginal or level 1 out of 5. I don't think there was one report. So that's certainly good news if you live up here toward Mineola, Mount Pleasant, and Linden. You might not be looking at much of anything. In the yellow area, a little heightened concern, again, for some damaging wind gusts. I think overall the tornado threat is low unless you get into deep East Texas. But the damaging wind gusts with winds closer to 55 or 60 miles an hour, certainly there. It's prevalent at this time. All right, let me move forward from looking outside. Here's some of the limiting factors. It's 63 at Mount Pleasant. That's why I'm kind of thinking maybe we get away with just some showers and thunderstorms there. We've warmed up to 67 at Jacksonville, 70 at Palestine, and 68 at Crockett. By no means, this is not a March, April, or May setup. In those setups, sometimes we have temperatures closer to 80 degrees. The dew points, that number that sort of gives us a feel for the amount of humidity in the air, well, that number is not going to get any higher than the air temperature. And so as long as that dew point stays in that lower 60s, we'll be okay. Once it starts popping, like it will in March and April and May, once it starts popping into the upper 60s, boy, that's when we can have some juicy, strong thunderstorms in the area. So let's see, we got storms on, according to Ruth Spalding. Wind is blowing in Longview and Spring Hill area. Thank you, Tracy. Yes. We're going to have breezy winds before the thunderstorms even arrive. And I'll show you why that's happening already here. Again, the number that we're watching is the dew point. All right, so this is the amount of moisture in the air. Just think about this. The higher this number goes, the more humid it is. So it stands to reason that Houston and San Antonio are more humid with their closer relation to the Gulf than we would be in Lufkin and Tyler, which are currently at around 61 degrees. Now, I had a professor in college one time. His standard was if the dew point doesn't make it to 62, you're not going to have severe weather. Well, I've seen severe weather with lower dew point numbers than this, but if you just gauge that, then we are sort of in that marginal risk for severe weather just based on the amount of moisture. And then notice, though, we do pop up into that 63 range as the drier air starts to move in. So right as that drier air is moving in, the dew point or that moisture just surges a little bit. So later this afternoon in that 4, 5, 6 o'clock time frame, that's when we could find our strongest storms. And then notice quickly the humidity starts to drop and the drier air comes in. All right, so we're going to take a look at what we call storm energy. So this is going to take into effect wind shear, which is the change of wind direction or speed the higher you go in the atmosphere. And it's also taking the amount of available energy in the atmosphere and it combines it into an index. And so that's what we're going to look here. And it sort of gives us actually, this is different. This is just going to be the amount of storm energy in the atmosphere. Okay, so this is going to be based on humidity and air temperature. And so that gives us what we call convective available potential energy. So that's what this graphic is. It's a little rusty trying to get back into severe weather mode here for sure. All right, lots of rain in Hopkins County. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, as long as it's raining in Hopkins County, it lowers that threat of severe weather because that'll keep your instability down. But let me look at this storm energy here. Notice how Hopkins County it just brushed by there. But we never really got more instability than just weak as we went through that graphic. It ran across the area this afternoon and the instability stayed on the weaker side. And then tonight, I think there could be some thunderstorms overnight, 11, midnight, 1 a.m., but those will be non-severe because the strength of the storm will be past at that point, but there's just a little bit of energy in the atmosphere, some rising motion in the atmosphere as the main storm goes overhead that could create some thunderstorms at that time. All right, so why is it windy in Longview right now? Well, here's why. At about 5,000 feet off the surface, we've got some fairly strong winds blowing in the order of about 50 to 65 miles an hour. This is another component to the severe weather setup today. We're getting this little streak of wind just off the ground. So what is that doing? It's lifting the air from the surface. So I have all those clouds today. Plus, if we can get a thunderstorm, then winds like this would maintain that thunderstorm and the rotation within that thunderstorm. So that could lead to hail, and that's what could lead to a mesocyclone forming or something that would then turn into a tornado. It could also mean that these winds at this level would be transferred down to the surface And that's where we could find our stronger wind gusts with the thunderstorm in the order of 60 or 65 miles an hour. So this is key to watch. This has really come up over the last couple of days. This was when we first looked at the data for Saturday, it was in this blue area, in that 25 to 40 to 50 mile an hour range just off the surface. So it's increased a little bit. And now I'll throw this into motion as we head through 5 o'clock. Did you see how fast those winds pushed through East Texas? And it gets a little bit stronger in the order of more than 60 miles an hour, more than 65 miles an hour as it approaches the Louisiana border. And notice also this little segment here. So there should be a little rear flank inflow that comes into the storm that helps to bulge it or create sort of these bow features. And so one of those bow features shows up in eastern Panola County into Shelby County around 5 p.m. So this is one of those areas I'll watch carefully this afternoon for a damaging wind gust right in here. I'll try to circle this for you. Right in there between Carthage and Center because of that little bulge in the wind, the little directional wind that pushes out a little strong inflow wind from behind. All right, no rain in southeast Tyler yet. Yes, Rob Williams. We are not expecting any rain. Probably in Tyler, I'll show you here, maybe closer to 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon. It may take a little bit. One of the pieces of the evolution of this storm today that has unveiled itself is just a slower arrival of the storms. So I appreciate everybody tuning in and staying with us here on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. We're trying to bring as much information as we possibly can. And again, I'm going way in depth. These are some graphics that sometimes we show you on TV, but then I have to sort of get them done in about 30 seconds, and we got to get over them. All right, so now we're going to look at severe weather potential. So I talked about the convective available potential energy, and we just showed you the wind shear. So let's put all that together and find out what that index is. And so we'll look at that index, and we'll base it on a low to medium to high threat of severe weather. 12:15 right now, that threat is low because we don't have any thunderstorms here. Let's walk through a couple of hours. Now we get to 4 o'clock. Now we see just a little uptick again. The push of that stronger wind just off the surface, a little bit more instability down toward Houston County, southern Anderson County, into Trinity County toward Groveton. And now we start to get up into this medium range of severe weather. Notice I also said there was a chance for maybe some stronger winds over in the center or Shelby County and Panola County area. Well, let's watch also for this area in Houston County. They are in the 5% tornado chance today. So in Houston County and in Trinity County, I want you to be thinking about if there was a tornado watch issued later today, where you would go if a tornado warning was issued by the National Weather Service. By 7:15, though, we're starting to see the storm energy and the storm potential begin to wane again as it moves into deep East Texas. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be there in parts of southern Nacogdoches County, southern Angelina County, San Augustine, and Sabine County. So just briefly on the uptick as we head into those other areas. All right, so a stormy Valentine's Day. This is why we issued the weather impact alert. Again, right now there are no watches or warnings, but we do this if we think that the weather is going to be impactful. So even if we did not have a severe thunderstorm warning today or did not have a watch issued, and it's possible, we've seen setups like this happen before where we've had nothing in East Texas. So that's possible, but because it's so impactful until about 8 p.m. tonight, the weather impact alert is in effect. The impact, I think that the biggest threat here for us is flash flooding. And then that second threat would be damaging wind gusts. And then that third threat would be a tornado spin up. And even lower than that, hail. This is just not a scenario where we would see hail with this setup. So our need today, if you can, is to make sure that you are safely driving out there on the roadways. Watch for puddling on the roads where your tires can lose traction. Got to have the rain gear if you're headed out. Sometimes Valentine's Day is a big movie date. And if you were going in, say at noon, and then you came out at 2:30, 3 o'clock, it could be pouring. So the weather could change dramatically from the time you go into the theater and you come out. And then, of course, the CBS 19 app where you can watch streams like this and monitor and follow along on the Facebook page. So CBS 19 app, cell phone, ready to go, all charged up, follow along with those storms. All right, let's go back to the timeline now. So everybody wants to know what time in my yard, right? So here we go. Yes. Cutler says we need the rain in Rusk. Sure, you sure do. All over the place. Rob wants to know maybe I won't have to relocate my car to the Fair Plaza garage this evening. I don't think so, Robbie. Rob, I think it's just a matter of rain. The hail threat, again, is real low. I don't think we're going to have a bunch of damaging hail. But this is 12:20, so this is now, we are supposed to be into some of this rain, and at least our future Skycast is a little bit ahead of the game here. But I do think by 1 p.m. now that line that's currently in the DFW is getting closer to Henderson County, Van Zandt County, moving toward Hopkins, and also up into Titus, Camp, and Morris County, right? Or Franklin County. So as it continues working its way eastward, this is 1 p.m. this afternoon, and as it goes into the 2 o'clock time frame, and I'm just going to step us out hour by hour here, there's that little low-level jet energy coming in, causing perhaps a little bowing segment out toward Linden and Jefferson to the east of Gilmer. So a little bit of strong wind could be there. This is a curious feature here back toward Tyler and Palestine, because the thin line of thunderstorms out in the DFW remains a thin line, but it doesn't look as ominous as it does on radar right now. But still keeping an eye on it just because it has that little bowing features in here. So there could be some isolated stronger wind gusts as it moves through. Again, that's 2 o'clock, thin line thunderstorms. Then it kind of elongates and really starts to become more of a clustered thunderstorm. So seeing this segment here tells me that now we're starting to take away our threat of wind and go back to that flash flood threat. Still though, in the Carthage area, remember I showed you those strong winds, that little wind gust there? That was at about 4 o'clock. Our in-house computer model thinks about 3 o'clock. So let's just keep that window open between 3 and 5 p.m. for strong wind gusts. Back here toward Jacksonville and over toward Crockett, we have to watch for the potential for, again, I showed you the best severe weather potential was down in Houston County. That little notch right there being picked up by our high-res data would suggest that maybe we get a quick spin-up tornado or a tornado warning. Sometimes you can have tornado warnings and you never get the tornado. But a tornado warning, if that happens, you know where to go. Again, there was a couple of these little notches that show up in our modeling data around 4 o'clock. Southern Nacogdoches County, into northwestern San Augustine County, Panola County, and across San Augustine County. Right in the areas where we would expect those to be. Notice also back here toward Gilmer, Mineola, Athens, Canton, and Emory, it's just rain. So once we get past 4 or 5 o'clock, it should just be rain. Well, we start now to look at heavier thunderstorms over Center, San Augustine, and Nacogdoches, with flash flooding becoming the potential down there. And then the wind threat moves into Louisiana. We got light rain showers around 6 p.m. Rain continues into parts of deep East Texas, and our show is over by 9 o'clock. And then again, this little this is the upper low that spins overhead. There's a little bit of instability, so the air's rising. As the air's rising, it's cooling and condensing. That difference between the air temperature at the surface and the cooler temperatures aloft can create some thunderstorms, especially we have ice crystals and we have the raindrops toward the base of the cloud, so that can create thunderstorms. All right, so let's talk about rotation potential. This is where we're getting in the weeds here. We're going to go in depth. Okay, so what am I looking at? So we're going to look at all of those factors taken together. The wind shear, we're looking at the instability, we're talking about what is, and that low-level wind speed. What is the chance that we have these 50, 65 mile an hour winds 5,000 feet off the surface and they can get an updraft to rotate? Doesn't mean that it's going to be a tornado, but what it would mean is it would sustain itself and it could become a little small hail or something of that nature, or it could possibly create a spin up. So let's walk us through this. And you'll notice out here toward Mineola and Canton, and use that blue as your guide, we're just a little bit of an uptick in that rotation. So yes, there could be a few thunderstorms that are embedded within that line. So Kilgore probably in the clear, Janie Kinsey asked. Well, in the clear from the aspect of tornadoes or severe weather in terms of real strong damaging wind gusts, but not in the clear in terms of thunderstorms and maybe some gusts that get close to 40 or 50 miles an hour. Once we get here to about 4:55, again, you see just this little bit of an uptick. Now, there's a little cell there. And again, this is just one piece of data, so we can't just kind of grasp onto that and say that's exactly what we're going to go with. But it gives us an idea of potential areas where we could see a little bit of rotation and its guidance. Most of this, again, the strongest that we see here in this green, this elevated area into green, is occurring in the 5% tornado area over deep East Texas. So it's all falls in line with what we're seeing in some of the data. It shifts off to the east, and again, by this evening, it is pretty much gone. All right, let's see if we can answer any more questions from anyone. Melanie says it's storming in Arlington. Oh yeah, and then they're headed toward East Texas. Let's see, we got anybody else with some questions on here? Chris Collins wants to know about Yantis. Again, Yantis is going to be an earlier arrival on those storms, probably meaning the time frame of 2 to 3 o'clock, and it could be out of the Yantis area fairly quickly by maybe late afternoon. All right, let's talk about the power outage index. This is going to take into account wind speed and lightning strikes. And there's going to be quite a bit of lightning with this. And so as we head into the afternoon and we get down here, you'll see there are just little low to moderate areas where we could see some power outages. So power outages are not off the table today. Could have power knocked out thanks to a wind gust and or a lightning strike. Notice that little higher reflectivity or reflection in our legend that goes to the moderate to high here down in Houston County. All right, walk us through 5:30 and then everything is gone by tonight. The important thing is that go to bed overnight tonight. You don't have to worry about overnight storms, right? Everything's happening today. So I think that's certainly good news. This was yesterday. This is not for tomorrow. 10-day forecast is not going to reveal thunderstorms tomorrow or a weather impact alert. I left that on there. I wasn't sure I had that in there. All right, so let me go back to the beginning for the folks that are watching. Looks like we do have some folks that have checked out. We've given them a look at the forecast, and they're going to go about their day. So we appreciate you tuning in here. One more look at the radar, and then we'll take a break, and we'll be back on later on this afternoon with another stream. But right now, all things are quiet in our region. We'll go ahead and throw this into motion here. So from Mount Pleasant back to Emory toward Canton, showers and thunderstorms in the DFW. Currently, the thunderstorms are now marching to the east. The line gets a little thinner down toward Waco. We're going to watch for some, let's say, brief gusty winds as they cross I-45 and into East Texas later in the afternoon. Please, if you got any questions, post those in the comments below on our Facebook page. Otherwise, I appreciate everybody taking their time out and watching us here on our YouTube page or our YouTube channel, also on our Facebook page and on the CBS 19 Plus. If you haven't downloaded the CBS 19 Plus app, please go ahead and do that. Again, that's a great resource for you as you head into the afternoon in terms of the thunderstorms. On the Facebook page, you can share that with anyone. You can share this post with anyone that wants to see it. You can also, if you haven't signed up or followed us on Facebook, please do that. And then, of course, on the YouTube channel, you can like, subscribe, and share this out, and then so that way more people get ahead of that. We're just getting into severe weather season right now. It's just mid-February, so this is a little earlier. That's why the concern today, I would say, is there, but not tremendous. I know I've seen a lot of stuff on social media really trying to amp this up, but again, February, not a super warm day. Humidity barely gets to the level that it needs to get to in terms of severe weather. Yes, there is some wind shear. That is the one thing that is present today. So there could be some downward transfer of the winds that are stronger off the surface that could provide a damaging wind gust or two. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. One more brief look here at the severe weather outlook. This was just updated at 11:30 today. Again, slight risk, level 2 out of 5 risk for most of East Texas. North of Interstate 20, that is a level 1 out of 5. Thanks for watching. Have a great afternoon. Make sure you check back often for more updates.